You know, we're in very hot Mexico right now, and we're about to talk to somebody who is in a very cool climate.
This could not be coming at a worse day because we just got to Mazatlan yesterday and we had been in Baja where it was dry, and now we are back in humidity and we are sticky and gross. And today our guest is in Iceland. And I think I would give anything to be in Iceland for 5 minutes right now. A little bit jealous.
You know, we got to go to Iceland about, it'll be 2 years.
Yeah, September will be 2 years.
Yeah, September will be 2 years ago. We took a group of people to Iceland, and we absolutely loved our time there and so desperately want to go back. And so when we found out that we were going to have Kyana on to talk about Iceland, we were like, please, like, we just want to talk about it. We just want to go back. We want to experience it. We get the hype, and we're excited to talk about Iceland today.
Yeah, Iceland is definitely one of those places that lived up to the hype, and I wasn't sure it was going to because I had really high expectations of it. But Kyana is an American living in Iceland, and so she knows a lot about what it's like to move abroad, what it's like about making friends in a new country, exploring Iceland, all of that kind of stuff. So you've probably seen her on Instagram, but today our conversation is just about all things Iceland. So sit back and enjoy it.
Oh, but before we get into the conversation, remember, please go like and subscribe this podcast. Leave a review on iTunes. That would be so appreciative. Anything and everything helps.
All right. Without further ado, this is our conversation with Kyana. Kyana, thank you so much for being here today. We are so excited to talk to you about Iceland. We fell in love with it a couple of years ago, so thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I can't wait to talk to you guys.
So to start off, could you just go ahead and tell everybody who you are, what you do, where you're from? Give us the lowdown.
Sure. I'm Kyana, and I am an American content creator, obviously, if you can hear from my voice. I'm an American content creator, but I live in Iceland, and I just moved to Iceland for the love of the country. I was like, wow, there's so much adventure. I'm going to live there. And so now I live here. And yeah, I own a media production company here. I make a lot of content on my social media and on social medias for other companies. And I do a lot of travel advising for people coming to Iceland, making personal itineraries and selling my guide and map and stuff like that.
Dang.
That's so cool.
You do everything.
Yeah.
Wow. Very impressed. I know how much work that takes. So I just want to ask to start out, like, how did you end up in Iceland? How long have you been there?
I've been here for almost 5 years, actually, which I can't even believe that I spent that long, to be honest. But I mean, you know, Iceland has been kind of a top travel place, like for adventure travel for quite some time. And I just came along with everyone else. I rented a camper van with my cousin. We did a 10-day road trip around the Ring Road, and I absolutely fell in love with the country. It was also kind of during a time where I was working a 9-to-5, and I started to resent my job and the, you know, only 10 days of vacation that you get a year. And oh my gosh, there's a dog back there too. Wow.
Sorry.
We're just full of surprises right now.
So sorry. Keep going. We didn't mean to wreck your train of thought. He insists on being between us.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, and I just I became like pretty fearful that I would, you know, look back in my life and like the best years of my life, you know, like your 20s and 30s and stuff, and see that I didn't do anything cool, that I just sat at a job that I hated and was like saving money for a day that I don't know that's going to come. And I just one day on a whim quit my job and said I was going to move to Iceland. And then that's how I'm here.
Oh my gosh.
So where did you live at in the States beforehand?
I lived in Boston before. I would say that I'm from there.
In Boston.
So that's not a bad commute between Iceland and Boston, though, is it? It's a pretty short flight.
It's super easy. It's like 4.5 hours, depending like which way you're going.
Wow.
It blows my mind that it takes us longer to get from our home in Tennessee, like across the U.S., than it does to get from like the U.S. to Iceland.
Yeah.
Iceland's so accessible for a lot of Americans. It's crazy. I don't think people realize that because it looks so exotic and so far off, but it's not too bad.
No, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
So like, so when you made that decision, like, I mean, was Iceland the only like place on your list, or were there other places around the world that you were like looking forward to?
Well, to be honest, when I was gonna quit my job, I didn't know I was quitting my job until the moment those words came out of my mouth.
Shut up! No way! Oh my gosh!
I didn't go into work thinking, okay, this is my last day. I'm gonna quit my job. It was really rash and in a meeting and just oh, you want this? Okay, fine, I quit, kind of thing.
Oh my gosh, you had that story. Epic moment that everybody wants.
Yeah, it was a kind of out of a movie. Just there was a meeting and I just got into a bunch of trouble at work that I shouldn't have gotten in. It was a lot of drama. And, at the meeting, okay, is there any last words? Is there anything else you want to put out on the table or whatever? And I was like, yeah, I just also want to give my notice. This is my I had to give 3 weeks notice. So I was like, this is it. This is just my 3 weeks notice. And they were like, what? What are you going to do? What do you have planned? This seems very unexpected. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to move to Iceland. And everyone had known, everyone at work had known that I was obsessed with Iceland because I had went the one time and never shut up about it. And I was just it was a lifelong dream to move there, but it was you were never going to do it kind of thing. Just, oh, it's my dream, but not one that you would act on. And I just said, they're like, what are you going to do? And I was like, I'm going to move to Iceland. And they were like, what? And I was also like, what? I don't know. Okay, yeah, I guess I got to do that now.
Guess we're going with this.
So.
You know that you're the story that they tell, that they're like, yeah, one time we had this girl and then she quit and she said, I'm moving to Iceland, and we've never heard from her ever again,
I honestly hope that they look at me and they're like, oh, okay, she did that and she's killing it.
Yeah.
But
you are killing it for one.
Yeah, you are. Well, that's amazing.
You're killing it with the media side of things. Actually, right after we got back from Iceland, one of the girls who went to Iceland with us, she sent me your reels, and she was just, still dreaming and loving Iceland and living vicariously through you. And that's how we discovered you. So we've been following along since then, but you're doing a great job with media. So I have to ask, what were you doing before? What can I ask what that job was in Boston, or what was it, media of any sort?
No.
Okay.
No, I have a very unconventional career path. I worked in sports, so I was a sports girl, and I played sports my whole life. Was a college athlete, and then I wanted to work in college athletics because I just loved that experience so much. And yeah, I worked in the admin business side of things, and I loved what I did, but I didn't like the environment I was working in at that time. So I have other jobs that I loved where I worked there and my employees and stuff, but here, or not my employees, my coworkers. But yeah, this place that I quit, it wasn't clicking with me. I was there less than a year when I quit, and and then when I came to Iceland, I thought, because at the time you see Iceland all over social media, this is before Reels came out, or if it existed, I just thought that to live in Iceland, you had to be a photographer. Very naive of me to think, but it was the only thing. Yeah, it was the only way that I saw Iceland. I was like, okay, these people road trip all the time. They live there. I followed all these people who live in Iceland, and it looks like they road trip all the time, and that looks so much fun. And they're all photographers, so I guess I have to be a photographer if I want to live that kind of adventure life. So I just started, binge watching Peter McKinnon and all these other photographers on YouTube, and taught myself how to use a camera, how to compose a shot, and blah, blah. Wow. Bought a camera off of Facebook Marketplace and went from there. And I just got lucky that I ended up being in Iceland during the pandemic when Reels and TikTok kind of took off, and I could shift over to that kind of platform and share this life that I had in Iceland, because it was really special at the time. Of course it is now, but when everyone was locked down, it was extremely special that I lived in Iceland, and people found that really interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a better place to be during a pandemic. You could get outside and do everything, and that's amazing, especially from a career standpoint. Being able to pivot so fast and in a great time.
Yeah, so I mean, there's literally no, we'll hear excuses from other people all the time. They want to start a YouTube channel, or they want to start Instagram, they want to do something like that. but they always like there's always that hindrance of like, well, I don't know, I don't have the right gear, or I don't know how to do it or whatever. But like you're the prime example of like just go out and do it, and then something could happen like that. That's amazing. Yeah.
And I love that you bought it off Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, I'm like, yes, that's like just start where you can. I love that.
Yeah,
right.
That's amazing.
And I didn't have a lot of money at the time. I was like super irresponsible, like moving here. I didn't have a job here, and I didn't have a lot of savings. I didn't have a plan whatsoever. I just came here thinking I would get a regular job, like, and I would like do this social media thing on the side, like as a side hustle. Like that's how you have to start, right? I don't have any followers or anything. I'm not even really a photographer yet, and I just came here trying to get a regular job, and I couldn't. And then the pandemic basically hit, and that's when I was just stuck. And I was like, okay, well, all I have to do now is like focus on this thing that I'm trying to figure out. And it was just a huge learning curve. But it's funny that you say like people have these like limiting beliefs now that they don't have the time or whatever. And I have those now today about other things. You know, I'm like, no, I don't have time to start a YouTube. I can't. Like, if only that's like laundry list of things to do. But it's funny when you only have like a plan A for something and it's like your true passion. Because I just wanted to live in Iceland. And it was logistically a nightmare to figure out how to get a visa to live here. So I came here with no visa, and all I wanted to do was get a visa, and I used content creation like to get a visa. So for me, there was no plan B. I had to live in Iceland and figure it out, and I had to like make this social media thing work.
Whoa. Wow. And it worked out. I was going to ask about the visa process because I would imagine that's pretty difficult. Could you talk a little bit about that? Did you go on a tourist visa, like the typical just upon entry, or what are the options for that?
They're pretty nightmarish, I'll be honest. And the story is definitely going to be a bit more than you like bargained for, but I'll try to like condense it a little bit. So,
Cool.
So you can, as you know, just come to Iceland like with a U.S. passport. You don't need a visa. You don't have to like sign up for anything. You can just come, and nobody's going to check how long you're here, right? You could theoretically just stay as long as you want. I'm not advising to do that, but like, you know, you don't need to fill out any paperwork. So I basically did that. And while I was here, I started applying for jobs, and I couldn't get anything. And because you needed to get a work visa, so your your visa options are like a work visa where the employer sponsors you, and you could be like a special skills worker or a shortage of workers. That's kind of it. Or you could, you know, get married to an Icelandic person, which really was recommended to me a lot by lawyers.
No way.
I'm not joking. And by the embassy. The Icelandic embassy told me to do that.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So did they just expect you to go walk into town and be like, "Hey, I need somebody." I need somebody. Yeah.
When I was like researching how to like move to Iceland after I had quit my job, I then realized, okay, this is going to be really hard. And I called the Icelandic embassy, and I was like, "Hey, I've read like online how to get a visa, and it just seems like really hard. I must be missing something here. Like, tell me, like, what's the easiest way? This can't be it." And they're like, "Oh, well, the easiest way to get a visa is to get married to an Icelander." That's the embassy's answer to me on the telephone.
That is so crazy to me.
I mean, it's still not even that easy. So
Yeah.
So essentially, they are making it as hard as possible.
yeah, so they don't really want you to be here. So yeah, or you could have like a student visa, or you know, a sports, be like an athlete kind of visa. Like I didn't really fall into any of these categories at all. So I was like, okay, I have to just get a job, right? Because I need money and a visa. So those go hand in hand. I'll get a job. I'll apply to every job out there. In Iceland, I don't care what it is. I'll just do anything. I couldn't get a job like cleaning bathrooms in a hotel. I couldn't do anything because nobody wanted to hire an American because it requires all this paperwork and a visa. Like, it's not just easy to give out these visas. So after like 100 job rejections, which was really defeating because I'm, you know, a very qualified individual. I have like a master's degree, and I'm very personable and everything. So that was really hard. I had found out that you could become a glacier guide and get a visa through that because it was a special skill that you could learn to be a guide, and they really needed them in Iceland because of like the tourism industry. Right. So I trained to be a glacier guide. That was a whole adventure in itself, and did all this medical certification and everything to be like a really highly qualified applicant so that I could get it. They couldn't be like, no, like that you don't have enough like education or whatever. So I did all of these things, finally got a job offer. I was so stoked. They were like, yeah, we have a Canadian, so it's like we know the hiring process, and we can do all this paperwork, and let's like get it started so that you can start working in June, like May or June. And I was like, okay, great, awesome. So we like met in person. That was like a meeting we had in person. And then later that afternoon, I got an email from them, like a text or something, and they said, hey, like we just heard about this 2-week lockdown, this Trump travel ban thing, so let's just put the paperwork on hold and let's pick it up in 2 weeks, like when everything is over and like fixed. And life was never over and things were never fixed, so we had to drop that completely. And I had just so badly wanted to live in Iceland that a few months prior to that moment in time, I had applied for the university like in the next fall because it took so long to apply. Like you had to apply like 1 year in advance. So, which I had like made the mistake the year before of not doing. And I was like, oh, like really regretted it. I was like, okay, I'm just going to apply for next year so that it's like a backup plan. If you don't get anything in the next like 8 to 10 months, you know, you have this other visa to fall back on, and it's kind of just your ticket into Iceland. At least you can be here legally and, you know, get an ID number and a bank account and everything. So I ended up having to do that, and I enrolled into the University of Iceland in the fall of 2020.
What?
And I was like not, like I did not want to be a student. Like that was like not something I really wanted to do. I just wanted to live in Iceland, and that was just the only way I could live here was with that visa. So I was the worst student ever. Like I did not care. Like I was just, I've never been such a bad like student. I can't even believe that I like let myself get to that point, like looking back, but I just didn't care at all. I didn't care to learn anything. I didn't care about a grade. I didn't care about the people. It was also like all online. So because it was COVID, so whatever. I just used that time to like make friends and like build a portfolio and travel because nobody was here, and just kind of get the social media thing like going. That was definitely my priority. And Reels and TikTok came out, and I started posting my life on there and then posting some travel advice, and things really started to take off. And companies here in Iceland were also like looking for help on their social medias. Like, okay, how am I supposed to use this new Reels and like TikTok? Is TikTok even a thing? You know, people were really against TikTok a long time ago. And so I would like consult for companies and tell them how they should do it and like what they should do, and give them like a business plan and teach them how to make videos and stuff like that. So I became like a really early adapter and expert in the whole like short form video. A lot has like come since then, because this is now 4 years ago. And that's when I figured out, okay, I can turn this into a business. Like this is now like a profitable business for me. I can do this. Like we can just run with this idea, because I had no idea what I was going to do after the student visa. I had no plan. I was like, we have to figure it out for afterwards. So I made a company in Iceland. Now that I had an ID number and like all of that stuff, I was a resident here. I could make a company, which I could not do before. So I made a company, and my company hired me. So it was like a legal loophole to like get me a visa. Because I just figured if no other company in Iceland wanted to give me a visa, which is what happened, nobody wanted to like, you know, come close to me, then I would give myself a visa. I would make a company that would give me a visa because I want to do that. So I did that. It was like a whole bunch of work. It was a lot of stuff, and handed in this application to get my own visa for my own company that I work for. A lot of time went by. Sorry, I know this is a like really long answer. And
no, it's fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating. It really is.
Because the most dramatic part hasn't even come yet. My visa got denied, and I got a letter to be deported.
What?
Oh.
And they were gonna like kick me out of this country that I was doing so much like free tourism work for. Thousands of people. So by now it's like spring of 2022, I believe.
Okay.
Just for like the timeline reference, like lots of time has passed, and I have like really grown on social media, and I start, you know, helping people plan their trips and just inspiring thousands of people to come here and to spend their money here and to, you know, add to the economy. That meanwhile the government is like, no, you're not allowed to be here. We're not giving you a visa. You have to get out. And so that was a really tough time for me. And I was like, again, no, I have to like live in Iceland. This is my plan A. There is no plan B. I can't just go back to somewhere. There's nowhere to go back to. I sold everything and came to Iceland. So there was just nothing. And I fought back like really, really hard. I like had tried to get a lawyer. I went through a bunch of lawyers who they didn't think they could help me. They didn't think we could win the case. They said, this is not winnable because you can, wow, what's the word? English is escaping me right now. But you can, fight. Oh my God, it's like a very easy word, but you can like fight the visa. You can appeal it. Oh my God.
Yeah. Appeal, that's the word. I was trying to think of it too.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of it.
So you can appeal the decision. So that's what I needed a lawyer to do that. And I went through 3 lawyers who said, there's no way you would ever win this appeal, ever. You'll never do it. You have to get married to an Icelander. That, again, comes up. Which, like, I'm, like, so single at the time, by the way. And, like, comically single, talking about my dating life, like, on Icelandic TikTok all the time. Yeah. And so eventually I found a lawyer who could help, who wanted to help, and thought we could figure something out here. And we went through like a very dramatic appeal case. It was very public. Like a lot of the people, like the locals in Iceland, were really involved. And we even got like other people involved, like people like my followers like got involved on this case, which is like a really crazy thing because like the legal system in Iceland, first of all, every system in Iceland is very, I don't want to like get caught saying this, but I feel like it's kind of corrupt. Like I feel like you could just go in there and like get a favor done kind of thing, even if it doesn't really fit on paper. But just, I feel like it was that kind of like case. So we had like letters from companies in Iceland. Like we also did all the legal stuff, but we had like letters from companies in Iceland who wrote things about me, help like me and my company helping their company, and we had like videos and letters from people who would send me a DM or an email or something that I inspired them to like come to Iceland and that they came here because of me, and a whole bunch of other things like that. We made like a little documentary, and that was part of the appeal. It was just like a lot of really small things that made a difference in the end, and it was a very widely talked about case here in Iceland, like among the locals. And after like the worst 2 months of my entire life and thinking I would still get deported, I ended up getting the visa with like 2 days left of my like deportation countdown, which I was like, it was really, really stressful. It was like the worst time of my life. But so that's how I got a visa.
Oh my gosh. Well, every thought I ever had of like, maybe we'll move to Iceland, you just like shut that down. I just don't even know. I'm already married. He's not Icelandic, so I'm sort of like out of luck,
we kind of blend in when we're there. Like people thought we were locals just from the hair
blonde
color, but we're not Icelandic. So like we're
oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
I do have one very specific question because we have wanted to go to Europe, and like you can apply to Europe for like a year visa or that kind of thing, but we've always heard the academic visa, like you're there to study. Is there a minimum to how many hours you have to take to qualify for that visa?
Yeah, so you have to be a full-time student, which, gotcha. Unfortunately, and you have to be, like, you have to pass the first semester in order to get to the second semester. Okay. So, like, I tried a little bit the first semester, and then by the time you couldn't, like, kick me out, like, I was, like, I looked at the dates and everything, like, to see what is the date where you couldn't, like, drop a class or a class couldn't drop you or something. Then I just ghosted, and I just, like, failed out of school, basically.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy because I know you said you have your master's too, so that's obviously a big change for you.
Yeah. So,
oh man.
So you said that this was like a public ordeal, like a lot of locals knew about it. So while you were walking around or meeting people, did people already know your situation before you would even talk about it to them or say that?
Yeah,
like discuss it.
It was definitely. I was like headlining news for several days in different. Like news outlets here in Iceland. Just my story was really crazy. You know, Iceland is a really small country. There's not a lot of people that live here, which means there's not a lot of news to report on. So anything that happens out of the ordinary makes the news. Everyone knows everyone, and even today I just met someone the other day, and they were like, "Oh, didn't you have like a visa thing?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like everyone knows something happened.
Hey, real quick. We just wanted to say thanks for listening to What No One Tells You, and we'd love for you to join our little community. So be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Okay, let's get back to the conversation.
Wow.
Wow. So when you said that it was very, like, a lot of locals were involved, were they pretty supportive of you getting your visa, or did you have opposition, or what was that like?
A lot of the local community, for the Icelanders, they were very supportive of me and of the visa getting here. But there's a lot of foreigners also here in Iceland, and they were the most unsupportive of me getting a visa because of the way,
Really?
Yeah, because of the way the media portrayed the story. So it suddenly it came out, the story kind of came out of nowhere. It didn't for me. This was like a really long, like 3-year process, but the story came out of nowhere where like, oh, Icelandic influencer or Iceland influencer like is getting deported, and then she made her way into the media and now she has a visa. Then she got a visa. That's basically
That's unfair.
Yeah, that's basically how the news portrayed everything and the media portrayed everything. So people just thought I was like a very entitled person crying to the media, and then I was getting the visa, and they thought that's how it happened.
Sucks.
Which isn't at all.
Oh, that sucks.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
I was just really curious about that because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but our understanding of Icelandic people is that they're really kind, but they can be kind of cold and like keep to themselves. So you said they were pretty supportive. Have they welcomed you into the community? Like, have you made good friends there? What is it like to know people in Iceland?
I agree with everything you said. They're definitely really friendly people, but they are quite closed off. So they have their friends since like childhood, and that's like kind of it. They just really keep to their own little circles. But and so as a foreigner moving to Iceland, because there's a lot of them here, a lot of us, it is hard to break into society. I definitely agree with that because of the language barrier. That's probably the biggest like barrier to entry, just like to be accepted like into the society and culture. But I think because I have mostly Icelandic friends, and I just do a lot of work with Icelandic companies, and I'm just really known in the media. Like, people have seen me on social media, so I'm already kind of a friendly face to them. So there isn't as much meeting people. I'm not a complete stranger to people, even though I've never met them. Like, I'm a friendly face. And so that, I think, really helped me kind of getting into the society. I also have an Icelandic boyfriend. Not that I'm more in the society, like, because of him, but I'm included in, like, family things and holiday things that I wouldn't necessarily have been included in before because I don't have family in Iceland, for example.
Gotcha.
But I definitely think as a foreigner, it's really hard to like be included in society, to really feel like you're in the Icelandic society. But I feel like I am, and I feel like I'm also the exception. I don't feel like it's a really easy thing that you could just like build your way in, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I kind of suspected that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just always hear that about the Nordic countries of being kind of, I don't know. Like, we found them very nice, but you could definitely, like, they have their friend group, they are set, like, it's a tight knit community. They don't need anything else.
Yeah, we used to live in Seattle, and Seattle is very much the same way. Like,
there's a lot of Nordic heritage there.
Yeah, and so people like they were very cold, like distant, like not mean, but just it was hard to break through. But then once you broke through, I mean, like, there's still some of our best friends for life, which is amazing. But it's always it's just hard to do that. And I can't imagine, because I mean, it's one thing, like, we're in Mexico, we speak a tiny bit of Spanish, but we're able to get by.
That's a generous statement.
I mean, we know how to say good, where's the bathroom, and like go on. And then, but like, if you set me down in front of an Icelandic person and ask them where the bathroom is,
I couldn't do it.
I don't know what I would say. And so I can't imagine the language barrier trying to like make relationships, especially coming, because you probably didn't have like prior knowledge on how to speak Icelandic when you moved there?
No, I definitely didn't know how to speak Icelandic. I still don't, if I'm being completely honest. I don't put a lot of like effort into learning. Everyone speaks English, and I think probably the hardest part there, like when you're trying to like meet people, is that you can't meet people the way you normally would. You can't like overhear a conversation and say, "Oh, I heard you were talking about this later," like, and you feel the connection that way. You can never do that because you're excluded from every conversation that's happening because you don't understand what anyone is talking about ever.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Definitely.
Yeah. So let's pivot for a second and talk about travel in Iceland. Like, you fell in love with it, you moved there, and now you're helping other people visit Iceland. What what would you recommend for people planning their first trip? Like, is there a certain route they should do? Is a certain time of year? Like, what is your general advice for that?
My general advice, first of all, people ask, like, what is the best time to come to Iceland? And I don't really believe that there's a best time at all. I just think that you should come to Iceland when you can come to Iceland. When you can get the time off, when you can afford the flights and the trip, that's when you should come, because you'll have an amazing time no matter what. But I always recommend to people to, like, rent a car or a camper van, just a vehicle, and to, like, kind of road trip around, to not stay in the city. And if you stay in the city, then don't stay for, like, more than 1 or 2 days. Like, I really recommend and try to push people to be out of the city. There really isn't that much downtown. And if you're coming to Iceland, I think you should be honest with yourself. Like, you're coming to Iceland for the adventure and, like, the nature. Like, you didn't come for the, like, downtown scenes. It's the same. It's like it's anywhere else that you would go. There is nothing special about it, like, truly. So I really think people should, like, get out into the nature and, like, road trip around. You don't have to camp. That's, like, totally fine if that's not your style, but you should definitely, like, try to move accommodations, like, every other night or even every night if you're up for, like, you know, really seeing everything and coming with an open mind. I think that, you know, most places you would travel, you don't do that. You wouldn't plan, like, 7 different hotels around, you know, a circle or something. You would just, like, plan 1 or 2 places to move. But I would highly recommend to, like, move as much as you can around Iceland in order to see all of the things. And you'll never see everything, so, you know, just make the most of it. And whatever you do, like, get on a glacier, go see an ice cave. Don't leave Iceland without doing that.
Okay. All right.
So I know Iceland it's gotten so popular. Like, even since, I mean, when we visited 2 years ago, it was already popular. It was already popular.
It's still popular.
And it's still, like, I feel like it's just gangbusters. Like, everybody wants to go, or, like, it's just become this really hot spot for people to go and see the scenery and everything. Has it gotten too much? Like, do Icelandic people, or, like, you know, as a local there now, like, you know, all these tourists coming in, has it gotten too much for Iceland to, I want to say to handle, but, like, is it just too much? Like, is it just an overwhelming a number of people exploiting these spots around Iceland? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I have a lot of mixed feelings, I think, on this, and I think a lot of other people, like, in the industry do as well. I think that, like, the tourism boom came fast for Iceland, and they didn't really set up the right infrastructure everywhere for that. And so because of that, you kind of feel like the nature is being exploited in some places, because maybe that there's not a correct parking lot there, or there aren't the right paths put in. And because there's so many people, then it looks like in some places nature is, like, being destroyed, but it's just the infrastructure, like, wasn't really there. But I will say it's a lot better, like, now. And they're always doing changes and stuff. But I do feel like the Icelandic people in the industry are lucky. I think that they're not doing anything to get people to come here. They are just living, they're spoiled off of the luck of, you know, the Eyjafjallajökull volcano that erupted, like, 15 years ago and stopped air traffic, that put Iceland on the map. And then again, during COVID, when it was shut down, they had really amazing, not to, like, not be humble here, but they had really great content creators putting out great stuff about the country and how amazing it is to be here. But meanwhile, the tourism board of the government is doing nothing, and all these companies are doing nothing, but they're raking in the profits that, like, is happening. And then they just keep getting lucky with, like, the volcanoes that keep erupting. And like, that was, like, the best, you know, unplanned, like, campaign ever, like, right after the borders open. Like, come to Iceland and see a volcano, you know? So, yeah, and I just think that kind of the locals, there's also no creativity really with the tourism, like, companies. You know, everyone just opens the same things because it was successful somewhere else. Like, all of these lagoons that we have everywhere. You know, there's the Blue Lagoon, the Sky Lagoon, the Forest Lagoon. There's just so many lagoons and, like, hot springs, and they're all really nice, but they're all the same, you know? Like,
they are.
Like, is there something you can make it be different and just, like, differentiate yourself with? Because And same with like, guest houses and accommodations and restaurants. Like they're all just the same. And there is really no variety to them at all. They just kind of feel like, there's people here. So like we'll just make a company and do something. Same thing that everyone else is doing.
Makes sense.
I don't know if that answers, but
no, that makes real sense, and that does answer the question, because we're like you, where we fell in love with Iceland, but it is such a tiny place, and then we were always curious, like how has affected the livelihood of the people there. So I have a question. Like, if somebody wants to visit Iceland, how can they be a good tourist? Are there certain places you should or shouldn't go? Certain companies to or to not support? Like, what would you say to that?
Honestly, if you want to be a good tourist, I would say that you should, like I said before, you should rent a car and travel on your own, and spread out your where you would be traveling, and you're not going to the places that are over visited, or I wouldn't say places are over visited, but places are crowded because of bus tours, and they're it's very accessible. I get it. There's so many amazing nature sightseeing places here that are super accessible. So if you can't do crazy hikes, or you're really old, or you just have accessibility issues, Iceland is a place for you to get into nature completely. It's so easy to get to anything. You don't have to hike to see amazing waterfalls and to see beaches and all this stuff. So anyway, I would not take a bus tour to add to this whole mass tourism thing, because a lot of that I feel is just money pushing, and just, not giving the most amazing experience. So to get the most amazing experiences, you should have the freedom to go explore on your own, and these off the beaten path places that not everyone is at, and just not add to kind of all of the noise that's there. But I will say there's noise and crowds at places for a reason. They're definitely worth going.
Yeah.
It's hard to say to skip these places.
I would agree with that. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. How long would you recommend somebody go visit Iceland? How long would you recommend is the perfect amount of time to be there?
If you think that you are coming to Iceland one time, but you'll never be able to come back, and this is your one-time bucket list trip, then I would say a minimum of 7 days. If not 10 to 14 days to get everything in. But if you think that you'll come to Iceland, you want to see Iceland in the winter, and then again in the summer, another year, or you think you'll be coming back a lot, then 5 to 7 days would probably be a good trip for you to get a really good trip in, and then to save things for the next time. There'll always be something to do that you haven't done, always. Even I live here and I haven't done everything there is to do. So
yeah. I could imagine.
Yeah.
We were there for 14 days, 15 days. It wasn't near long enough. I remember looking at the map, we haven't even covered a fraction of what I wanted to cover. And it was so fast.
We did the ring road. So before our group got there, we got there just a week earlier and did exactly what you did, or say to do. We rented a car and we did the ring road. We did
all that.
But even that was so fast. It was just incredibly fast. Because,
so beautiful.
Yeah. I will say Iceland has some of the best campgrounds, facilities that we've ever seen.
They're so nice, so easy. It was incredibly easy, because we're so used to being in the States where you have to book campground reservations 6 to 12 months in advance if you want to go to a national park. Whereas Iceland, you just roll up day of, and they're just pitch your tent over there, it's fine, whatever. And they have super clean bathrooms, and they're affordable, and kitchens, and we're so impressed by Iceland in that way.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
It's so I do want to ask another item on Iceland, the food. Do you eat that hot dog downtown a lot?
Yeah, that hot dog is also sold everywhere. It's sold at every gas station, and I would say we are frequently, when we're not on a health kick or something, we just eat these hot dogs. At least when I'm traveling, I would definitely get a hot dog stack at the gas station. So locals are eating them all the time. Seriously, they are.
It cracked us up, because that's not what I would think about Iceland. The food would be fish and soup and something else. And then we get there, they're oh, you have to have the hot dog, And I'm really?
Yeah.
The hot dog? Yeah.
They're lamb, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
They're 80% lamb,
okay.
and then there's a potato mixture and some little pork or something in it.
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where else should we go with this? Anything else you're
Yeah.
And we could talk about Iceland forever because we really did love it. It's one of those places I would love to go back to.
Yeah. What do you see, like, and maybe this is like treading on what we've already asked, but like, what's the like common mistake that you see people doing when visiting Iceland?
I feel like there's a lot, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But there's like, different levels of mistakes. I would say people maybe tend to overpack also when they come here. You come to Iceland, you kind of wear the same thing over and over again because it's like always outdoors and you're like kind of getting wet and dirty and like you just keep kind of wearing the same thing and you're like always in a jacket and like hiking pants and so I would say overpacking as well as like not packing correctly, like people packing umbrellas or a rain jacket that's not actually like water repellent and they're just getting soaked, or like snow boots, and that's actually kind of impractical around Iceland. As well as I see like really stupid mistakes where people maybe don't check the weather, or something like tourists aren't checking the weather and they're driving into storms when they everyone else in Iceland knows there's a storm coming, don't drive today or don't drive in that area or something, but they just like go because they don't know, and it's their only problem is that they didn't check the weather. So if they had, then they would know or talk to a local or something. So I would say like being underprepared in that sense, as well as I see a lot of people like pulling over on the side of the road where you're not supposed to, because you've been to Iceland, there's no shoulder. It's just like a 2-lane road around the whole road, which is crazy. They call it a highway, and it's like not a highway. It's like super dangerous, actually. And people are just stopping over because they want to take a picture, and there's no shoulder to pull over, so they're just really stopping in the middle of the road, causing like accidents to happen. And that's just the stupidest mistake ever, because so many car accidents have happened in Iceland because of dumb driving and mistakes like that.
I could see that.
And I would say also like, a mistake is to just come to Iceland and then stay in Reykjavik the whole time. So there's like all different kinds of mistakes you can make, but or also like coming to Iceland and having nothing planned, which is like, you should have like a little sense of what's happening. Like, so I hear stories of people that came to Iceland and they are just like going to figure it out when they get here. But I feel like that's a little too late. Like, I feel like you should have a loose game plan by the time you get. It doesn't have to be like hour by hour, but you should like know what areas that you want to explore and have booked something there already. But I hear people come here and they're like, we're here for 7 days and we spent the first 3 days here in Reykjavik and we're just kind of taking a day by day. And I'm like, okay, like you're just wasting your time here. You're missing out on a lot of stuff. So those are some.
There's so much to see.
There is.
Kind of touched on something a little bit, and that's safety in Iceland. Like, Iceland is regularly ranked as the safest country in the world. It sounds like you've done some solo travel there yourself. Is it a good solo destination?
Yeah, it's so safe. It is like, it's always ranked the safest country. There's no predators in Iceland. Like, there's no dangerous animals, and there's like the crime rate is super, super low, and like people, they have their babies sleep outside, and that's like fine. And it's like, it's no
so crazy.
problem at all. And I have done like a lot of solo traveling, like staying in hotels by myself, camper vanning by myself. I've done everything alone, and it's super safe because I think everything is really accessible. And I also feel like all the same kind of people come to Iceland. Do you know, like the same personalities? Like, we all want this outdoor adventure, and we're all like nice kind of people. So I feel like it's easy to travel solo also because you meet kind of like-minded people, and you don't get this array of things that you maybe would get if you went to like a big city or something.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's another aspect of safety, and I'm just curious, like public, like PSA kind of things, like if there's a volcano going off or there's a winter storm, like I'm mostly curious about the volcanoes. Like, how do you guys know to stay safe around those? Because is there one going off right now? I mean, there was just recently. Like, what does that look? I have no idea. Like, do you guys just like a mass text where it's like, hey, don't go here, there's lava right now? I don't know. What does that look like?
No, that's a great question. There is a volcano erupting right now. Yeah, and it's not that far from where I am in Reykjavik. But I think the misconception there is that volcanoes are probably safer than people think. So like it's at least these ones that we've been having. They're pretty like small. They're not like, it's not a super volcano where it's like going to end the world or like, you know, civilizations. But lava just, this sounds so casual, way too casual. But, you know, at first we get earthquakes. So there's never just like a surprise eruption. Because we do live like on a fault line, like where the continents are pulling apart. So like lava is coming in to fill up those gaps. And we get earthquakes, and this is when you know a volcano is coming. I mean, like the scientists know and they tell us, so now we think we all know. But yeah, so we started getting a lot of earthquakes in, like before the last volcano, it erupted in like March 2021. And we would get like so many earthquakes every single day for like a month leading up to it. And they didn't like disrupt life. They were kind of like more annoying. Like nothing, you know, was broken or damaged or anything in these earthquakes, but like everything would just shake for like 3 seconds, like every couple of hours.
That's so crazy.
Wow.
And so I guess they know like when these earthquakes happen because like the earth is pulling apart. And lava is like magma is filling in these gaps and like creating like a magma chamber or something. It's like all collecting like under the ground. And then they know that it's like going to come up when a whole bunch of small earthquakes happen like in one spot. So it'll just be like a huge swarm of like very tiny earthquakes that you can't really feel outside of it. They're like, unless you're like standing maybe on the exact epicenter. And then they know that it's a matter of, you know, an hour or so that like lava will then reach the surface and will start going. And they know, so they know where it's going to be. So it's never like, oh my God, you could just see a volcano like in your backyard or something. They're really all pinpointed with like the tools and stuff that the scientists have. And it's just always in the Icelandic news, so we know about it. And if there was ever like a really big safety problem, then you get a text message on your phone. So I think that's kind of a cool thing that they have going. Even if you're like not signed up for anything, I think you will always get like a text message on your phone if you enter that area or if you're near that area or something, that it is a dangerous area and to not be there or to evacuate or whatever. As well as when there's going to be bad weather, if you've signed up for the safe travel text alerts, which I also always recommend people do, especially in any season but the summer, to sign up for these text alerts just to see, like, it'll text you like if you're in this area where a storm will be, because there's almost never a storm like over the whole country. It's always just in like some regions. So like the weather almost never applies to the entire country. It's all, there's like 10 weather systems in Iceland. It's crazy.
Interesting.
So yeah, we have like these text alerts that are really helpful, and then these volcanoes don't just happen without warning. Like we know when they're going to happen, and they're kind of always in the middle of nowhere. At least the last 6 have been in the middle of nowhere, all in the same place. But so nobody has been like hurt. No one has died because of a volcano, like these recent volcanoes in the last 6 years at least.
Wow. That's actually really hard to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew they could tell it was coming, but I didn't know that as it got closer that a bunch of little ones happened in one area and that's how they pinpointed it.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought they were like, well, it's more active on this area of the island. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I think they use a lot
like
of tools. They're like, they can see the heat and like where the magma is in the ground, and they can see the shift of the ground and how much magma. They can even calculate how much magma is coming in based on how much the earth rises. Not sure how they could do that, but they can.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
Stuff we don't have to worry about living in Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, like as a kid, like we always thought that quicksand and volcanoes we were going to run into all the time, you know? And so just to hear that, like, it's not as bad. Yeah, I have yet to run into quicksand.
But people were nervous about, I shouldn't say, like, I think it was like our grandparents and stuff. They're a little nervous about us going to Iceland because we were there like a week after that one went off. Like, the last big one went off in Iceland. I don't remember the name of it, but one of them, and they were like, are you going to be okay with the volcano? I was like, yes, we're fine. Because we all remember, was it 2011 when it stopped air traffic? And that crazy one, but they're not all like that.
No.
Okay. Like that one's very specific. So that volcano has a glacier on top of it. And it's all just science. It's when like the magma interacts with the ice or water, it will turn to ash immediately. So that's how that happens. But these volcanoes that we have now, they're not under any kind of, they're not near water. So that's not going to happen. It's just going to be like lava.
Gotcha.
And also,
that makes sense. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, I will say that the global and U.S. media and news sources are really blowing up the volcanoes to something that they're not. And it's actually hurting the tourism here in Iceland right now.
Good to know.
Interesting.
That's a
really
good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good to know, because you do see people who's like, I bought my ticket to Iceland. I'm going to go there because the volcano's going off or something. I don't know. And then a lot of the Icelandics, they just act like it's not a big deal. So it's really hard to, the media. I mean, what can you say?
Yeah.
But okay, so we've talked a lot about everything planning for Iceland. What resources do you have if we wanted to point people towards a website or social media? How can people learn from you to plan for Iceland?
I'm everywhere on social media. I'm on Instagram and TikTok, Facebook and YouTube. And I also have like an Iceland guide. So I have a map, like a very interactive map that has a bunch of pinpointed locations with more information on each one. And along with itineraries there that you could follow, or there's a bunch of blog posts as well. And I help a lot of people plan their trips. So we make a lot of personalized itineraries. So those are a huge hit, which is pretty nice. People come with kids or different needs or something, and they just want a trip perfect for them rather than like a cookie cutter something. But so yeah.
That's super cool.
I would say all the links in every bio.
Yes,
Yeah.
We will link everything down below so people can find you, follow along, and plan their trip.
I do have one more question for you. Just one more. If you could go back in time 5 years, at the moment that you quit, and you were going to say, hey, I'm moving to Iceland, like, would you still move to Iceland? Like, do you regret, like, becoming, like, is this home for you?
I regret nothing. So I'll start there. I definitely don't regret anything. This has been like the craziest and best years of my life. Like really, like I've done things, you know, I have something to like be proud of and look back on, and I have growth that is like very measurable that I can see. It is my home right now, like for sure. I have a whole home here. I don't like live in a hotel or an Airbnb or something. And will it be my home forever? I don't know. Like Iceland is a very special place to me, and it will definitely always be that for me. But I don't know. You never know where life takes you. We're open, definitely.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that open mind mentality.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with us. This was so good. You gave us a little bit of wanderlust, like we needed more of that. So thanks a lot.
I'm about to hop on a plane and go to Iceland right now.
It made us excited. I know like peak tourism season's coming in Iceland, so I'm sure we'll have a lot of people who are excited to plan their trips. But thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great to talk to you guys.
Thanks for listening to What No One Tells You with Chris and Sarah. If you have a comment or question that you want answered on the air, be sure to send us a message to hello@chrisandsarah.com, or you can call or text our phone number at 423-825-9572. Thanks for listening.